Hey, 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 streaming gang. Happy Monday and welcome back to the stream. First, I just have to say, I know it's 3:30, not 3 o'clock. Don't at me. Everybody's probably already roasting me for all of that, but it's okay. It happened for a reason. We had a very busy day today, and it's like classically a Monday. Let me just tell you. I had the incredible fortune of co-hosting my new live call-in show with the one and only Dave Rubin today at 1 p.m. Eastern. And shout out to our guy, Alex Padron, who is one of the call-ins to today's show. Again, we are working on getting you guys the opportunity to call in live to the show, but starting with Dave's original locals, supporters, and Rumble followers first. So excited to get you guys over on our new show, People of the Internet, very, very soon. In case you didn't already hear about it, it's a really exciting new live call-in show, which nobody in the conservative movement is doing. So we're reacting to crazy stuff from the people of the internet on the internet, but then we also get to meet you guys as you call in and ask us about whatever's going on in your lives. So very exciting stuff that we absolutely love. I did that at 1 for about an hour. Then at 2, I spent an hour on the Charlie Kirk show talking about how we more importantly reach Generation Z and more specifically Gen Z women, which was a very important conversation to a different generation that really, really needs to hear that, if you wanted me to be totally colorful. And so I had to just take a minute and actually eat calories and have some water because I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off this morning. So we're here. We're late, but we're here. Don't at me. It's fine. It's Monday. I'm so glad to be spending some time with you guys. And sadly, I am not so glad to be talking about the subject that we are covering today on the show. It is extremely devastating and so sad, but it's a story that needs to be told around the world, because if we don't have the courage to speak up for this beautiful little baby, the world is not going to learn from the mistake that it made with Indi Gregory. So we're going to be uncovering the very tragic, horrifying death of an innocent baby in the United Kingdom today, how the socialized medical system led to her death, and how her parents essentially had no rights under law, even in the United Kingdom, which seems like a place that you would pretty much be guaranteed to have rights over your own children, and how we can prevent something like this from ever happening again, because it is just a gut-wrenching story. First, though, I want to say hi to all of you guys. So wherever you are watching, do me a huge favor and take a second and let us know who you are and where you're watching from. And especially if you are a new first-time viewer over in our live chat, we are concurrently live on YouTube, on Rumble, on Facebook, on Getter, and of course to our locals community. As you guys are doing that, do me a favor and hit the like button on this stream to help us in the algorithm. That might look like a little thumbs up or a little heart, depending on where you're watching. Ring the notification bell so that you always know when we are going live or uploading new videos. And most importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button to help our channel continue to grow. I am a totally independent creator, meaning it's just me in the spare bedroom of my house running around like a chicken with my head cut off as a team of one at my company. So allowing you guys to subscribe to this show for free and watch it for free is my way to give back to you, but we're really hopeful that we're able to have these conversations with a bigger audience, and all of that starts with you guys subscribing to these channels to help us continue to grow. Before we say hello to some people in our live chat, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our sponsor of today's stream that is helping to make it possible for you guys to watch for free every single day, and that's our friends over at Nori. Their logo's right here. I'm so excited to be working with Nori this year, delivering the highest quality and most accessible microbiome solutions on the market. You guys probably know I've been on this whole journey this year of detoxing my life, from the clothes that I wear to the cleaning products that I use to the makeup that I put on my face, and thrown away probably thousands of dollars of products. But I know, as a biomedical scientist from my college and graduate school experiences, and because I'm just a hyper nerd, that in order to truly detox your life, it also has to start with what's happening in your body, in your gut microbiome. In my journey of detoxing everything, I've been so fortunate to come across Nori, who has the best solutions to nourish your gut microbiome and to help you feel your healthiest and best self every single day. I, for one, love their women's specific products. They have men's specific products as well, but their women's health probiotic and their digestive health supplement is amazing. But by far and away, my favorite product from Nori is their signature Stay Well product. It works a lot like those little packets of Emergency, but with way cleaner ingredients, and it tastes a whole lot better. I drink drink one every single day. And if you guys get sick a lot or you travel a lot and you need a little extra boost to both your immune system and your gut microbiome, Nori's Stay Well product will absolutely help you stay healthy while you are on the go. You guys can grab your first Nori product from the link that I am dropping right now in our live chat, and you can use code Isabel20, ISABEL20 for a discount on your order. All of that info is also in the description of this live stream so that you guys can check them out later, but I highly, highly recommend them. All clean products, all made in the USA, and they are a pro-life, pro-family, pro-freedom company, just like all of the ones that we work with as sponsors here on the stream. So I know you guys are going to feel great about supporting them as well. Let's kick things off today over on Rumble. We've got Craven and my Quilwin starting things out for us in the live chat. Hey guys, so glad you're here. Tuco Wright and TZ Patriot are back. So is John Best. Ray of Sunshine is watching, says, hello, lovely people from the UK. Unfortunately, today is a very bad day to be a British citizen, and I'm deeply ashamed of what my government has done to this little girl. Thank you for speaking up, and I love seeing more British individuals speaking up about this story on my Instagram, on my TikTok, and hopefully on the live stream as well. Ray of Sunshine, we love you very much. We've got over on Locals, Johnny Diamond, Alex Padron, Emrock, Tito, African Warlord, Sabina, and more. You guys are the best, and I'm so glad to see all of your names pop up. We love our Locals community, and you are all invited to join us over there for extra content that only exists over there. Mr. Bin Texas, Train Enigma Music, War Room Chic, and Nitty Witty are kicking things off for us in our Getter chat. And over on YouTube, can't forget about you guys. We love you. Always Pooh is watching, like Winnie the Pooh. Says, Isabel, as much as I like you, this story is a headline-grabbing title. You are incorrect. I'm excited to unpack some of this stuff with you guys because, believe it or not, this is not just clickbait. This is not just a crazy viral story. Stories like this happen literally every few months out of the UK's healthcare system, and we're starting to see really similar things happening in Canada as well. So I'm excited to unpack this with you. Please do not think this is just like an attention grab or a clickbait headline. Stories like this are a lot more common than you think, and I hope by bringing attention to them, we can prevent them from happening in the future. We've got Martha and Mayana Lynn watching. We've got Los Rabosa here. Mighty Sarlacc is here. Gator Kellogg, Brenda, and James are all watching. We've got Naruto watching, Daloon, Martha, and more. You guys are thebomb.com. We love you so very much, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys today. Don't forget to be using our live chat feature throughout the stream. It's very, very important. I came to come about this story and learn what was going on with this beautiful, innocent girl named Indi Gregory. I'm actually going to pull up a picture of Indi while I'm talking so that you guys can see what she looks like because she is the most beautiful little girl in the entire world. This is Indi. She is 8 months old, was 8 months old until today. She is an innocent, beautiful, beautiful baby girl from the United Kingdom. And her parents actually had her baptized a few months ago, despite not being religious themselves. So that is a huge saving grace in some of this story. But she is about 8 months old, was about 8 months old, has for most of her life been suffering from an extremely rare, debilitating mitochondrial disease that is degenerative. So it was breaking down her life over time. Although, interestingly, some are now saying that perhaps that was a false diagnosis, and doctors at the Vatican were disagreeing with that. Again, we'll get into all the details about it. Indi very, very tragically passed away today because the UK government, which also oversees their healthcare system, in case you guys don't live in the United Kingdom, through the court system, ruled that it was in the child's, quote, best interests to be taken off of life support despite her parents overwhelmingly disagreeing and vehemently fighting to keep their child alive. They said that she was alive, alert, she was aware of who they were every single time that they were with her. This was not a brain-dead child. This was a very alert, awake, alive, enthusiastic child that deserved the opportunity to fight for her life. But the England High Court system decided to essentially sentence Indi to death by mandating that she be removed off of life support against her parents' wishes. There was a lot of different entangled webs in this story beyond just the United Kingdom's government. So we're going to go into all of that. But I first found out about this beautiful story while Indi was still alive, thanks to the amazing, the one and only Michael Knowles over at the Daily Wire. You guys know I love Michael. I'm a huge fan of his, and he covered this story at length on his show and actually had the opportunity to interview Indi's father named Dean Gregory. And I would love to just react to some of this episode of his show with you because they unpack all of the facts very, very effectively. And just to hear what this beautiful family and this beautiful father were trying to tell the world about their little girl.
the father of Indi Gregory, this poor child who is facing death because the British government is attempting to kill the child, even contrary to what the government of Italy and what the Vatican are offering, which is citizenship and treatment at the hospital Bambino Gesù. We have him on the line. He's not in court right now. This should be an international scandal, but because we've heard this story now every 6 months, at least every year, specifically out of the United Kingdom, we've become callous to it.
We've become completely numb to stories like this. Michael's absolutely correct. So he kind of mentioned in passing there, in the midst of Indi's struggle for life and in the midst of the ongoing court battles in the United Kingdom, the government of Italy proactively reached out to the Gregory family and offered Italian citizenship with no strings attached to this little girl, while the Vatican's official children's hospital, which is called the Bambino Gesù, it's the Hospital of Jesus, is a very well-renowned, internationally renowned hospital, offered to treat Indi for free and might have even suggested that maybe she was given the wrong diagnosis in the United Kingdom and that maybe they could solve her problem of needing to be hooked up to a ventilator. Huge groundbreaking news that anywhere else would have been like, oh my gosh, this is a medical breakthrough. But the government of the United Kingdom literally refused to allow the Vatican to come extract this little girl from England. She was not allowed to leave the country, and she wasn't even allowed to go home to her own house when she was taken off of the ventilator. Michael and this dad, Dean Gregory, unpack this quite beautifully on his show, but talk about just insanity in supposedly a free country.
And the story is that a baby faces medical problems and the parents of the baby want to treat the baby and want to help the baby and want to keep the baby alive. And the psychopaths running the UK government and health.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Michael. The absolute psychopaths running the United Kingdom's government.
Health system, and more broadly, who run the health systems in the West, want to kill the child because they now view death as treatment.
We're going to come back to that sentiment, viewing death as treatment, on the other end of this story, and as it more broadly applies to how healthcare is changing before our very eyes all over the West and all over the free world, so to speak. Death is being offered as a treatment, and not only offered as a treatment, being provided to people and encouraged to patients as the preferable treatment because it's somehow more humane. Again, we're seeing this in the UK, we're seeing this in Canada, and we're starting to see it in America as well.
Mr. Gregory, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So sorry about everything you're going through. It's horrific. The health problems of your child are obviously horrific in themselves. I pray to God I never have to go through anything like that. It's the greatest fear any parent has. And then on top of that, your government will not permit you to treat your child or keep your child alive. And on top of that, the UK government will not allow the government of Italy, which gave your child citizenship, will not allow the Pope, will not allow the Vicar of Christ on earth to help treat your child.
And they offered to do that completely free of charge, by the way. The Bambino Gesù said that we will treat your child completely free of charge. She is now an Italian citizen, so she also had rights as an Italian citizen to go seek healthcare, life-saving healthcare in her new country of citizenship, but the United Kingdom absolutely refused the parents to allow them to take her there.
They simply want to kill your baby.
Yeah.
Tell us what's happening.
We're just absolutely disgusted. I'm embarrassed to be British at the minute.
Any other UK watchers on the stream today, chat? Anybody else embarrassed to be British today?
We've got another country offering to pay for the treatment, and they're blocking her from going to Italy. They're blocking her for coming home to get extubation. They're just being, it's just so cruel and inhuman.
So I don't know if you guys caught that. First of all, you can see how unbelievably devastated Dean Gregory is in this interview. Like, the pain in his eyes is just palpable, and it breaks my heart. But he also says, not only can we not take our child to Italy to obtain life-saving treatment, the government has told us that we will not be allowed to take our own baby home. She has to be in a government facility. a hospital, a hospice center, etc. We can't even take our dying little girl home to die at her own house.
What do you mean? I just don't understand.
Where does the case stand now? I know I really appreciate your making time. I know you've got a lot of other things on your mind. I know that there was a chance you were going to be in court this morning or this afternoon by your time. So where does it all stand?
There's a court hearing going off now. It's online virtual. But I've just had to pop out to get my daughter from school and then go back to the hospital and then join again. But yeah, this appeal is to do with where they're trying to block Indi from coming home. They're trying to say she can only go to a hospice or the hospital.
End of life care, by the way. That's what hospice is. Hospice is for end of life care, that you've exhausted every single medical option, which clearly is not the case in this baby's situation and in her particular medical case, when another hospital, a very well-respected, internationally renowned hospital, is saying there's much more we can do, and maybe she didn't even have the right diagnosis to begin with.
To have a treatment withdrawn. So they've blocked us from going to Italy, and now they're trying to block us from taking her home. It's just cruel.
I guess I just don't understand, and maybe anybody who is more of an expert in UK law can help me with this. Any Brits in the chat? How is it legally possible for the government of the United Kingdom to say, not only can you go get more treatment somewhere else for your baby, but also you can't stop treatment to take her home until we say you have to stop treatment, and then we put her in a government-funded hospice facility? I guess I cannot wrap my head around how legally there is an opportunity to tell parents, essentially, you have absolutely no rights. None. Zero. None at all. You do what we tell you, when we tell you, and you jump how high we demand. I don't understand how that's even feasible.
Is there any hope at this point that you will be able to bring your baby to Italy for treatment at the Bambino Gesù Hospital, or is that completely off the table?
I know the Italians are doing as much as they can in the background, and we're just hoping that something will come of it, like at any point. It's for the UK government and the Italian government to come to some sort of agreement. That's what we're hoping for.
Now,
also, how is it even possible that the entire government of the nation of Italy and the entire government of the United Kingdom are going to war over giving a little baby life-saving care? I genuinely cannot wrap my head around this. The Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, who has a lot to worry about this week. I think every prime minister in Europe has a lot to worry about this week with the ongoing threat of terror and the ongoing escalation of violence all over Europe. She personally had to go to war for this baby, and she has made many public statements herself as an individual. She's the one who offered Indi citizenship and made that happen. Like, the Prime Minister of Italy is going to war over this, and the UK still decided to essentially sentence this baby to die. I cannot understand this. Ray of Sunshine from the UK says in our Rumble chat, they do this all the time because the NHS is really the only choice in the UK, and it's run by the government, so the government chooses for you what happens. You can't even fight it. Craven says NHS might need a new name, the National Hospice System. Yeah, pretty much, because this is like the 12th story I've seen in the last year like this coming out of the UK.
Short of that, you'd like to take your daughter home, of course. You don't want to ship your daughter off to a hospice to just be neglected. Officially neglected by the UK medical system. So what is their argument? Why won't they allow you to take your own daughter home if even
to your own house? You don't have any rights to take your own child back to your own house? How?
Things are going to go south, as I suppose they will for all of us eventually, but if this is really her time, well, why won't they let her have her final moments in her home with her family who love her, rather than in some clinical UK institution?
It was in the original court order that we could choose for her to come home. I think when they found out about Italy, I think they got scared and are trying to block us from taking her home, because they're probably scared that we're going to jump on a plane or something and go over there. That's what it feels like.
Of course. I should have realized that. Because I couldn't figure out. I said, it just seems so needlessly cruel to say you can't even take your own daughter home if she is.
It is needlessly cruel. This interview goes on for about 4 more minutes, the clip, and you guys can check it out on Michael's Twitter. I don't want to get too in the weeds of all of the details here, but how is that remotely legally possible or acceptable in a country that historically has been one of the world's bastions of freedom, of enlightenment, of individuality, that you are quite literally not a person in the eyes of the UK government if you're trying to seek life-saving medical treatment that isn't offered by your crappy taxpayer-funded, government-provided healthcare system. Sure, I understand logically that the UK government is trying to prevent this little girl from going to another country. Why? I cannot even for the life of me try to begin to understand that. Maybe because it draws international attention to how truly heinous your healthcare system actually is, that you can't really save people's lives when shit hits the fan and you need good healthcare. You're not going to get it at the NHS. Maybe that's why they are trying to prevent this little girl from going to another country to obtain life-saving care. But to then have the audacity to look at parents in the eye in court, and as a judge, as someone who presides over the law in your country, have the audacity to look these parents in the eye and say, yeah, we know what we told you before. And yeah, we know that this really sucks for you, that your 8-month-old infant child is dying of this extremely rare disease that probably maybe wasn't even the right diagnosis to begin with, but our taxpayer paid doctors don't really have the education or the resources to appropriately diagnose your daughter. And we know we told you before you could take your baby home, but now actually we're going to back out on that because we're deathly afraid that you are going to expose how truly disgusting our healthcare system is, and that free healthcare isn't all it's cracked up to be, that we aren't even going to allow you to take your baby home. Not even an option for you anymore. Sorry, that's just the way that it is. Catholic News Agency and many other news organizations all over the face of the earth have been very, very well reporting on this, and I'm glad that they are bringing attention to it. They posted an update this morning of this gorgeous, beautiful, innocent baby girl, Indi Gregory. Again, I want to keep saying her name because her name matters. Her identity matters. This came out of Catholic News Agency this morning that a critically ill British infant, Indi Gregory, died overnight. She died last night. Or early this morning on Monday after her life support was removed over the weekend following a UK court order. We are ordering the hospital to essentially kill this child. Or else. That's the only option. And good luck taking her somewhere else. Somewhere else doesn't exist in our own country, and we've forbidden you from leaving your own country. Logistically, by the way, how did they do that? Are they like threatening to take these parents' passports away? If they showed up at the airport, if they like staged some heist to have to kidnap their own child to go to another country to obtain life-saving medical care, would they just stop you at the airport and prevent you from leaving? Would they detain you? I mean, this is ridiculous logistically how they were able to pull this off. The 8-month-old Indi Gregory died in her mother's arms at a hospice at 1:45 a.m. this morning, according to the British advocacy group Christian Concern. In a statement released through that group, Gregory's parents said that they are angry, heartbroken, and ashamed. Well, of course they are. This is their beautiful little girl who didn't have to die. But was essentially sentenced to death by their own government because their little girl was not a little girl to these politicians. Their little girl was not a human being worthy of dignity and respect and value, according to their own government. Their little girl was a number. Their little girl was a bed, taking up space for a procedure that could have made them money instead of lost them money. That's what that meant. They're angry, heartbroken, and ashamed. The NHS and the courts not only took away her chance to live a longer life, but they also took away Indi's dignity to pass away in her family home where she belonged. This is like something out of a dystopian psyop novel. The process to remove Gregory's life support began on November 11th, so just a few days ago, with extubation of her breathing tube and transfer to a hospice, which was mandated. They weren't allowed to take her home or let her leave the hospital. where remaining life-supporting measures were withdrawn, according to an Italian pro-life advocacy group. Indi Gregory, born in February and baptized in September, suffered from a rare degenerative mitochondrial disease. She had been receiving life-sustaining treatment from a ventilator at the Queen's Medical Center in Nottingham, England, after England's High Court ruled that it was in the child's best interests to be taken off of life support against her parents' wishes. The Italian government granted the critically ill child, Italian citizenship on November 6th and agreed to cover the cost of her medical treatment at the Vatican's pediatric hospital, the Bambino Gesù. I've talked about this quite a bit already, so you guys should know that. This is the part that just blows my mind. And so anybody in the chat that might be able to educate me a little bit more on this, I'm the first to admit I am not an expert on the UK's legal system. I do understand that the sense of individual rights is fundamentally different in the United Kingdom than it is in America, and that the court system is very, very different. For example, the UK didn't have a Supreme Court until relatively very recently, which they modeled after our Supreme Court. So the process of appeals looks a whole lot different in the United Kingdom. But this is the part that just continues to trip me up and make me want to punch someone in the face. Their parents, Dean Gregory and Claire Staniforth, who are Indi's parents, repeatedly appealed in UK courts to be able to take their baby to Rome for treatment, but lost their legal battle, getting up to the second highest court in the UK, ruling on November 10th that her life support be removed immediately. How a court has the right to remove your child's life support, quote, immediately, and has the audacity to tell you as a parent, you do not have the rights to leave your own country. You're being held hostage in your own country. You are essentially a prisoner in your own country, your free country, and you do not have the right to decide what healthcare is appropriate for your child. We do. I don't understand how a court system can have the legal capacity to do that. Not only did they tell these parents, yeah, sorry, good luck, you don't have any rights here, their ruling also said that the Italian government attempting to intervene in this is wholly misconceived and not in the spirit of the 1996 Hague Convention. So they actually said that the other government, Italy, seeing the humanity and the dignity and the value in this little girl's life and potentially accurately diagnosing her, suggesting that she might have had a misconstrued diagnosis from UK doctors, that they're violating international law by doing that. One baby's life is so important as the hill to die on, and I don't say those words lightly, the hill to die on for the government of the United Kingdom, that they are accusing Italy of seeing the humanity in this baby and suggesting that she deserves an opportunity to fight for her life as violating international law. Really? We want to go that far. We want to poke the bear that far over this issue. I am appalled at how truly terrible this is, and so were Indi's parents. Dean said, Claire and I are again disgusted by another one-sided decision from the judges and the trust. The whole world is watching, yes we are, and is shocked at how we have been treated. The Bambino Gesù has offered to treat other terminally ill British infants in the past, so this is what I just tried to say. I'm hearing stories like this all the time. Like every few months to every few years, I hear stories about disabled individuals being taken off of life support against the family's wishes. I've been told stories about ill patients or people who got in a car accident being taken off life support against the family's wishes. Like this is a very common story that I'm hearing in the UK, but there's also in particular a very unique thread here of a very similar story repeating over and over and over again, specifically about innocent children on life support and who have been diagnosed as terminally ill. But after the information has been coming out about this particular case, I have to wonder if those diagnoses are even accurate, because the Vatican started to suggest maybe that's not the right diagnosis for Indi. She probably could live. We think we can put a stent in her lungs to help her breathe, so she wouldn't even have to be on life support. Like total conspiracy theory tinfoil hat moment. How often do you think that they are misdiagnosing these children on purpose because it's just expensive to have to take care of a rare disease, and it's expensive to have to treat these people, and it's paid for by taxpayers, and we just can't afford to have healthcare actually be this expensive. Not to sound like a total conspiracy theorist, but if I see this story continue repeating every year or every few months of a terminally ill baby, even if they are terminally ill, they have the right to be treated until every option has been exhausted. But what if they're not actually terminally ill? What if these diagnoses are wrong? What if they are misdiagnoses because it just happens to be expensive to treat these children, and so they're taken off of life support without really truly understanding what's going on simply because it's expensive? The Bambino Gesù has offered to treat other terminally ill British infants in the past, Catholic News Agency reported, such as Alfie Evans in 2018 and Charlie Gard in 2017. You guys probably recognize that name, Charlie Gard. That story went incredibly viral in 2017, both of whom were ultimately denied the chance to travel to Italy by UK courts and who died days after being removed from life support. Point by point, exactly what is happening and what has happened with Indi Gregory. The exact same situation. How many times is the United Kingdom's government going to choose this hill to die on, to essentially sentence to death innocent children who desperately need life-saving medical care, even if it's not the right diagnosis, theoretically, because that's how truly proud this country is, not in a good way, pride as a sin, by the way. They refuse to admit something else can be done for the dignity of that child's life. I am nauseous over this story and truly actually disgusted. Just as a reminder, Indi's treatment at the Bambino Gesù would have been carried out at no cost to UK taxpayers. So if the cost factor was really the only issue here because it was too expensive to keep treating her in a government-funded hospital, what's the problem with allowing your child to leave to go pursue other options in another country that's offering free healthcare treatment to you? Pope Francis put out a statement from the Vatican on November 11th saying that he was praying for Gregory and her family, and I've seen tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of posts about this in the last few days. The part that really is insane to me, though, is what was happening inside the courts from the testimony of these doctors versus the testimony of the parents. So a few more details to share with you before we zoom out and analyze this thing at the 30,000 foot level. Associated Press, AP News, reported that the doctors treating Indi for the UK's healthcare system, the National Health Service, NHS, or maybe we should call it the National Hospice Service at this point because that's apparently all they do. Her doctors said her life support should be removed to allow her to die at a hospital or hospice. Doctors argued that Indi had no awareness of her surroundings and was suffering and should be allowed to die peacefully. However, I've seen countless testimonies from Indi's parents, Gregory and Claire, that she was not unaware of her surroundings. She was not massively suffering. In fact, she was awake. She was alert. She was aware of who her parents were. This is an 8-month-old infant child, so it's probably pretty easy for doctors to make the assumption or to say on paperwork that this child is suffering. This child is unaware of her surroundings because she can't actually advocate for herself. She can't talk for herself. And that's the exact same line that we saw used in 2018 for Alfie Evans and 2017 for Charlie Gard. So this is a very common repeated talking point from doctors in the NHS and the court system telling parents, sorry, you have no rights over your child has to die now. But repeatedly, I saw interview testimony, I saw posts on social media, I saw written testimony from Indi's parents, Dean and Claire, that she was awake, she was alert, she was aware of who her parents were. She was not imminently suffering to the point of necessitating death. And yet doctors had sworn testimony towards this in court. Repeated legal attempts backed by Christian Concern, an advocacy group, were rejected by British judges over this. In a statement early Monday, the baby's father bitterly criticized the courts for even refusing to let her die at home. Claire and I are angry, heartbroken, and ashamed. Dean Gregory said they did succeed in taking Indi's body and dignity, but they can never take her soul. I'm literally crying over this. These are very real tears. The case is the latest in a series of legal wrangles in the UK between parents and doctors over the treatment of terminally ill children. British judges have repeatedly sided with doctors in cases where the best interest of the child, again, who gets to determine that? who legally gets to determine the best interest of the child? Clearly, never the parents, because the parents are always, time after time after time, example after example after example, losing these court cases where they say, my child is not suffering to the level that these doctors are saying that they are. And call me a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist, but I'm pretty sure a parent has greater jurisdiction and awareness of who their child is to make the determination of what the best interests for their child is, rather than a doctor who might see this patient a few minutes every day, is not spending 24/7 with these children. And the crazy part is, doctors are regularly getting the side of the judges. So the judges are typically siding with these doctors, even when the parents are repeatedly objecting to a proposed course of treatment. They say, this is not what I want to do for my child. I do not want to remove my child from life support. My child deserves the opportunity to fight for their life. And regularly, these judges say, yeah, sorry though, you have no rights to your child as a parent. You have no understanding of what their best interests are, and you don't have any legal recourse whatsoever. We are going to prevent you from even leaving your own country. We're going to hold you hostage in your own free country, apparently, your own utopian, Western value, individualistic society country, apparently, instead of obtaining any opportunity to fight for the life of your child. On Friday, AP reported the Court of Appeal Justice Peter Jackson, presiding over this case, said the doctors caring for Indi and other critically ill children have been put in an extremely challenging position by the legal tussle. And yeah, I'm sure it would be a lot less challenging if doctors could just unilaterally sentence your baby to death and you completely lose rights over your children. I would much, much rather experience a difficult legal battle in society than the complete breakdown of the parent-child relationship in society. But, I'm just a crazy, outdated conspiracy theorist. Decried what he described as manipulative litigation tactics. You have got to be kidding me. Designed to frustrate orders made by judges after careful consideration. Manipulative litigation tactics. You have got to be freaking kidding me, Justice Peter Jackson, or anybody who tries to argue that a parent doing absolutely everything they can to save the life of their innocent baby, infant child, who deserves the chance to have every single option exhausted by her doctors, to accuse them of manipulative litigation. You are the assholes regularly engaging in manipulative litigation by trying to unilaterally, totalitarianly remove parents' rights to their own children and trying to decide with the stroke of a pen in your barrister's wigs and your judge's robes from a very high position in society who gets to live or die based on who gets more money fueled back into your crappy taxpayer-funded healthcare system. You want to talk about manipulative litigation? How dare you pretend to live in a free country and then turn around and tell parents that they don't have the legal right to leave their own country whenever they see fit, but especially to obtain life-saving treatment for their child, who probably, chances are, just this is me speculating here, but probably was given an incorrect diagnosis by your NHS government-funded doctors because it was just too expensive to treat her. You want to talk about manipulative litigation? How dare you pretend to live in a free country when you told parents they couldn't even take their innocent 8-month-old dying child home to her house to die in the comfort and safety surrounded by her family of her own house. The crazy part that none of these articles even covered, by the way, is that when they transferred Indi a few days ago from the hospital, the Queen's Medical Center in Nottingham, to this hospice center where she passed away, they actually made her be transferred with police escorts to ensure that her parents wouldn't have the audacity to take her home. She was surrounded by police officers, not for her own protection, but to prevent her parents from parenting her from the moment she left the hospital to the moment that she died, to ensure their child would not be receiving actual medical treatment, to ensure that their child didn't even have the dignity to die in her own home. You want to talk about manipulative litigation? How about every few months or every few years, we hear a new story out of the national health system, or probably we should say, thank you, Craven, for this suggestion in our chat, the national hospice system, that innocent people fighting for their life who've been in an accident, who are disabled, or who are babies and who don't have the opportunity to advocate vocally for themselves, that repeatedly we hear the exact same bullshit, shallow talking points from doctors who are probably being paid by the government outside of their government-provided salary to serve as expert witnesses in some of these cases and these trials, that they're just suffering. They don't want to keep fighting. They're suffering. It's not fair. So we're gonna pull the plug. We don't really care what any of you think as their family. We don't even care what they might think as an individual. That's not really up to us, but it is up to us to decide who lives or dies. If you are from the UK and you are watching this and this doesn't make you actively sick to your stomach, like genuinely angry over the amount of power that your government has over British citizens, it should. And if you don't think that you could be subject to manipulative litigation tactics from your own government, you could, and you probably will be at some point if we don't continue resoundingly sounding the alarm over stories like Indi Gregory, over stories like Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard, and every single other innocent person, but particularly infant child, who lost the opportunity to fight for their life, who lost the right to their life the moment the government decided it was inconvenient to treat them. Because if you think this is going to be isolated to terminally ill patients, think again. It is already escalating all over the world, particularly all over the Western world, where we are starting to offer death as a treatment option and even encourage it as the preferable treatment option for countless cases in so many situations that it never even would have been debated a year ago. Like I said earlier, the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, paid her respects to Indi personally in a social media post wishing the baby Godspeed. We did everything we could, everything possible. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Well, thank you to Italy for having the guts to continue fighting for babies like this. But why is it taking the government of a foreign country to even raise eyebrows over what your legal rights in a, again, supposedly free country to obtain life-saving treatment actually are? It shouldn't be, and yet it is. Last week, I made a video in America about a topic kind of similar to this at the request of Students for Life, who I do a whole lot of work with. They are one of the leading pro-life organizations here in the United States, that the American Medical Association, the AMA, was debating over the weekend, and I don't have an update for you quite yet, but they just finished debating over this weekend whether or not to change their official position on physician-assisted suicide, which is the fancy way of saying you ask your doctor to help you end your life. You know what? Let's look this up. American, because I want to know if there's an update. They were debating this weekend whether or not to stop calling it physician-assisted suicide and to instead start calling it MAID, medical assistance in dying. Their previous opinion on this was that physician-assisted suicide is completely incompatible with what a doctor is tasked to do. And if you guys have been following me for a long time, you might know, but if you're recent, you might not. I was actually pre-med in college. So my degree is biomedical sciences for undergrad, and then I studied healthcare policy in grad school at Georgetown, getting my degree in biomedical sciences, policy, and advocacy. So subjects like physician-assisted suicide are things that I pretty regularly studied throughout all of undergrad and grad school. But one thing that we particularly focused on quite a bit in my pre-medical education here in America is the Hippocratic Oath. And in case you're unfamiliar with the Hippocratic Oath, any healthcare providers in the chat want to sound off, essentially your number one obligation as a healthcare provider, as a doctor, as a nurse, as a physician's assistant, as a physical therapist, is to do no harm. First, foremost, in every single situation that you find yourself in, your primary responsibility is to do no harm. So if you think about that as the primary obligation of a healthcare provider, particularly a doctor, helping a patient to end their life, killing a patient, which is what physician-assisted suicide is, in the former words of the American Medical Association, completely incompatible with what the job of a doctor actually is. Their former stance on this issue was pretty darn clear. They said physician-assisted suicide occurs when a physician facilitates a patient's death by providing the necessary means and or information to enable the patient to perform the life-ending act. Typically what that looks like is a doctor giving you enough sleeping pills, barbiturates, drugs, etc. to essentially stop your heart and end your life. They say physician-assisted suicide, this is the American Medical Association, is fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as a healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risks. There is no telling what the downhill snowball effect of enabling physician-assisted suicide might look like if we were to change our position. Well, over the weekend, the AMA decided to reevaluate some things, and I don't know exactly what their new position actually is, so I can't speak for the AMA, but at the very least, I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. Woo! We're having one of those days. The AMA decided to reevaluate some things and ask, should we even keep calling it physician-assisted suicide? Instead, maybe we should call it something that's a little softer around the edges and that allows us to have the door open to normalizing this in American clinical settings. And they essentially wanted to change the name of it to MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying, MAID. That term might sound familiar to you because it is already the name of physician-assisted suicide in Canada's government-provided healthcare system. And it also made pretty substantial headlines within this last year, because Canada decided to expand their medical assistance in dying program, their MAID program, not just to patients with a diagnosis of a terminal illness, which is really what we're seeing in the UK. They're not really calling it physician-assisted suicide, but that's pretty much what it is. They're just taking you off of life support because you have a terminal illness. Not just for terminally ill patients in Canada, where that was encouraged or allowed, or doctors were absolutely enabled to help you end your life. Not just in certain states in America where you have a terminal illness, that was always the common denominator to even be eligible for physician-assisted suicide. But Canada decided to expand this program quite significantly, opening up a massive can of worms this year on bioethics of doctors killing their patients, because that's exactly where we are at, to people with mental health conditions and to people who are not dying of a terminal illness. Of course, that's the biggest gray area in the history of the world. So there's a lot of caveats that are supposed to be enacted in trying to make sure that it's only used appropriately. It's only used to really help people who are really, really dying, even if it's of a mental health issue. But the truth is, that's the world's biggest slippery slope that is enabling the government to assign value to you as a human being and to take advantage of you when you are in a vulnerable position as an individual, whether you have a terminal illness or you are mentally ill or you find yourself down and out and in a horrible chapter of your life and you think that there's no other option than to die. The government now has the opportunity and the right to start arbitrarily assigning value to you as an individual and to decide whether or not you should live or you should die. Of course, right now, it's very theoretical and hypothetical. It's very much if the government can convince you that that is a more preferable alternative. But as Daniel Maynard points out in our locals chat, it's only a matter of time before they make something like this mandatory. And this is the bioethical concern for allowing stuff like this to be more normalized. He said it'll be like that Star Trek episode that I recommended you watch called Half a Life. I still haven't watched it, but I want to. They will mandate that you commit suicide at a certain age and your family will be enlisted to ensure that you do it. Regardless of how we get there, whether it's the government telling parents, sorry, we don't care what you want. We don't care if you think your child should live or die. We don't care if your child may have received a misdiagnosis. We don't care if your child can obtain free life-saving treatment anywhere else. Your child's going to die because we say so, because that's the course of action we deem to be more humane, to have less suffering, to make sure that it's less expensive to our government. Whether we go down that route, like we're seeing in the UK every few months, particularly with babies. Or we go down this, suicide's really great. Let's just call it medical assistance in dying. Let's help these people die because that's the more humane, ethical thing to do. In both situations in the Western world, we are seeing health care turn into death care right before our very eyes. And it may seem like a small percentage of the population. It may seem like this radical conspiracy theory. It may seem like it's only for people in specific instances. That could never happen to me. If we allow this to continue being normalized, if we don't speak up about it now for this small handful of babies or for the small number of mentally ill individuals in Canada that are being taken advantage of to think that suicide is their only option, or sounding the alarm when the American Medical Association even debates changing their policy on physician-assisted suicide. If we don't speak up now, you think it's going to stop at terminally ill patients? You think it's going to stop at people with a mental health diagnosis? It'll be the more humane thing to do to remove life-saving measures or even actively help to end your life if you practice a certain religion, if you hold a particular position against the government, if you happen to be of a particular heritage or background, if you believe in naturopathic medicine instead of everything that's happening in a doctor's office, or even if you only halfway believe in naturopathic medicine. It is becoming more and more apparent to me with every passing day that the West as a whole, Western civilization as a whole, is no longer a free society. We might pretend that it is. We might like to say that it is. We might like to run on that for President of the United States. But if the government has the right to silence you when you criticize them, if the government has the right to remove you from public life and to charge you with a zillion legal charges to try to put you in prison if you don't agree with the agenda of the government at large and you happen to be, say, I don't know, a former president of the United States, if the government has the right to determine what you see and what you don't see on the internet by banning certain apps that don't fit their particular prescribed agenda or who don't happen to already be in bed with the US government, if the government can mandate what you are required to put in your arm in order to go to church or go to your job or open your business or attend school, if the government can determine whether you as a parent have any legal rights over your child's right to life, let alone how to parent them, if the government has unilateral jurisdiction in every single one of these incidences, we don't live in a free society. It's free in name only, is what that is. We live in a controlled society where we're being gaslit and indoctrinated into believing that we have a free society. We like to think that it's still the same country that's been governed by a Winston Churchill or a Teddy Roosevelt or even a John F. Kennedy. But every single one of those people are rolling over dead in their graves right now. Every single one of them. You think Winston Churchill or Margaret Thatcher would have ever allowed the government of the United Kingdom to sentence innocent babies to die? No. But here we are, and we like to pretend it's the same country as when those people were governing it. Ray of Sunshine popped up in our Rumble chat here from the UK and says, that's the really dangerous thing in the UK. If you disagree with the government, they basically rule over the NHS and therefore your healthcare. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about the story with Russell Brand being targeted by the UK government based on mere allegations of a crime. He hadn't even been charged with a crime yet. And the UK government essentially threatening to shut down the entirety of the platform of Rumble because they allowed Russell Brand to post what he wanted to on his private channel, public, but his personal channel here on Rumble for the whole world to see. That warrants an entire video sharing platform essentially being regulated as potentially illegal in the United Kingdom because of the mere allegation of a crime that one hasn't even been charged with. And if you don't think that something like that is deeply connected to what just happened with Indi Gregory, think again. When the government has the right to control what you think, to control what you see, to control what you say, to control what you post, to control what you consume, and to control whether or not you live or die against your own wishes or your family's own wishes, you do not live in a free society. You live in this. You live in 1984. This is exactly the society that George Orwell was warning against decades and decades and decades and decades ago. And instead of heeding a book like this as a warning, we used it as an instruction manual in the UK, in Canada, throughout all of the EU, and even right here in the United States of America. Wake up, people. I'm tired of having to say it. Granted, all of you are very awake people. That's the good news. But tell your friends, tell your families, tell your coworkers. It is time to be fully aware of what these people are trying to do to you. This is far more than you will own nothing and you will be happy. This is you will live or you will die if you agree with our agenda. And that sounds so insane, right? That sounds so tinfoil hat that could never happen in my own country. It is. It is happening in your own country. And you are not immune to it. It's coming for you next. There's that old saying that we've been talking a lot about with the rise of anti-Semitism and the continued conflict in Israel and Gaza. First, they came for the communists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist. You shouldn't say anything because you're not a communist, but you know how the saying goes. Then they came for these people, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't the same as these people. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and no one else was left to speak for me. They were all gone. That is the slippery slope. That is the downhill snowball effect of when we see stories like this beautiful, beautiful baby. Oops, I'm trying to pull up her picture. There we go. Her beautiful, beautiful baby. And we say nothing. It might seem so insignificant to speak up for this one person. After all, it's just one person, right? It has nothing to do with the millions of people that live in the United Kingdom or the hundreds of millions of people that live in the United States. But what can happen to one person can happen to everyone. And if we are okay with the government telling us you have the right to live or you have the right to die at whatever whim we decide is appropriate, we do not live in a free country. We don't. So the question is, how do we get it back? I think it starts with speaking the truth. I think it starts with grabbing a megaphone and speaking as loudly as you possibly can about this beautiful, innocent little baby who did not deserve to die. I think it starts with sharing stories like this and researching the patterns that we're seeing between Indi Gregory and Alfie Evans and Charlie Gard and every other baby that's being, out of compassion, sentenced to death by the UK government. I think it starts with paying attention when our own healthcare system starts debating the ethics of medical assistance in dying. I think it starts with saying, hang on a second, Canada. The rest of the world doesn't want to do that, and you shouldn't be either. When we say it's compassionate to end the life of mentally ill patients, that's preferable. I think it starts with speaking up for a culture of life, because if we don't commonly as humanity share our most basic human right, the right to life, good luck sharing the right to free expression. Good luck sharing the right to free religion. Good luck sharing the right to free assembly. Good luck getting to a free election. Good luck living in a free society. As we close this conversation out and we move over to Rumble for our post-stream Q&A, which you are all invited to, I know this is a really heavy story and it's a lot to try to wrap your head around. Do I, in fact, live in a conspiracy theory 1984 totalitarian society, or is that still a far-off nightmare hellscape? We're there, by the way. I want to ask you guys to just help me pray. Help me pray for this beautiful little girl, that the repose of her soul is taking place and that she's in heaven with Jesus. She has been baptized, amazingly, despite her family not practicing any particular religion. And I don't know where the quote is, or I would read it to you, but her father gave an interview saying that essentially he didn't necessarily believe in heaven or hell until he was in this situation, and he has seen what hell is like when his daughter is sentenced to death by the government. And so he wants more than anything in the whole wide world for his daughter to be in heaven, which is a beautiful story. But pray for this daughter of this family. Pray for her parents that they are comforted in this horrific, nightmarish hellscape of a situation. Pray for the horrifying, depraved, heartless assholes in the UK court system that continue sentencing these babies to die, that they have a radical transformation of their hearts and souls to actually see the value and dignity in humanity again. And just pray for a conversion of hearts around the world, that we can experience common shared humanity once more in our very broken world. It is possible. Nothing is impossible with God. And I really, truly do believe that. But I think so many people think we've already lost every battle, that we're never going to win the war. That is not the case. We're going to win the war in the grand scheme of things when all is said and done. But we can't give up fighting just yet. I know I said Rumble Q&A, LOL. It's locals. Sorry, you guys. I didn't mean to totally mince my words there, but clearly my brain is all over the place with this horrifying story. We are jumping over to locals for our post-stream Q&A, and I just dropped the link in our live chat. In case you guys didn't already know, over on locals, we have lots of locals-specific exclusive content that only exists for our supporters over there, so we would love to have you guys tune in. We just did a very cool live Q&A with my friend Anna Lulis on Friday about the supposed story of the Vatican okaying transgender Catholics, and where the Western secular media completely negated to tell you the truth on that, what actually happened. It was a great conversation. Would love to see you guys check that out, as well as all of our fun content coming to you this week. Anything else like major to say? We have kind of a weird streaming schedule this week because I'm traveling to be on a podcast on Thursday and Friday, which I'm super excited to tell you guys more about. So I'll let you know more about that on Wednesday, but we will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Rumble, Getter, and Facebook. Before you guys go, don't forget to hit the like button on this episode. It looks like a little heart or a thumbs up, depending on where you're watching. And most importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button to make sure that these very important countercultural conversations can continue reaching more people every single day. The world desperately needs to hear what we are talking about. You guys are the absolute best. We will be back tomorrow for the stream at 3 p.m. Eastern on time this time, I promise. Locals, don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a few.